So, congratulations on your fight announcement. That's so exciting.
Oh yeah, honestly, I've been waiting for it for a while now. They told me probably January or February when I was asking. I think it was like right after my last fight. We were like, when are we getting back in there? When are we getting back in there? They told me January, February, and then once obviously January came around, I was like, I don't think that's gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I was just so happy to finally get a date and obviously a good amount of time, a good camp. So I'm hyped.
Yeah, you got a nice long camp to prepare for a new weight class as well. So, what's the driving force behind this? I know a lot of people are wondering about the change, me included. Do you see this new fight class, weight class as like more of a challenge for you, maybe?
Um, I see, honestly, it's just I feel like it's right for me right now. My weights fluctuated all through my career. When I first started fighting, I was 18 years old, so I was walking like 117, and all my amateur fights are at 115. Even all my pro fights before I got in the UFC were at 115. It's just I made my debut in the UFC with the Tough House at 125, and I've just stuck at 125. And I was a little bit bigger. I feel like I was just doing a little bit, probably more strength training, had a little bit more muscle. So I was walking probably about I'd say 145, where now my last three camps I've walked 132. So it's like the cut to 25 has been absolutely nothing. I've hardly dieted. Like fight week, it's been easy. It's been an extremely light cut. And so it's just been more of a question in my mind recently. And then I flew out to Vegas. I went to the UFC PI and they did a whole bunch of tests on me. A lot of like bone density scanning. Like I had like it was just, they just have like everything crazy science stuff. And they told me they have that for all the flyweights, all the straw weights. And for me, considered with all the flyweights, I'm on an extremely lower side of the spectrum. Where with the straw weights, I actually fit in perfectly with most of what the straw weights are. So they determined it would be a health and safe cut for me to make, and I just felt like it's the right move and right time.
It's almost like you decided to do the flyweight that one time for tough, and then they were like, "All right, we're just gonna keep you here."
Yeah, and then I was okay with it too because
Well, yeah, I mean, you set so many records in the division. It's like, okay, this girl is clearly comfortable in this division. Is that something that you hope to bring into the strawweight division and keep that train rolling with record breaking and that sort of thing?
oh yeah, right now I know Mackenzie Dern has the strawweight record for subs, so I got to top that. You know, I only have the flyweight one right now, so I got to try to. I know I have it for all women, but I got to get the strawweight one too.
Before we start talking about your upcoming fight, I want to take a look back at your last appearance in the cage against Maria Agapova. I'm watching this live, and I'm waiting for the rear naked choke to happen. I love when you get on the ground and do your thing, but that was a scary finish. Like she was straight up. I was like, is this girl having a seizure? Like no joke. When something starts to happen like that mid choke, the ref hasn't come in yet. What's going through your mind? Like, how did you feel in that moment?
I think you can see in the video right before he pulls it off. I look at him and I go, "She's out," and he was like, "No, she's not," and I was like, "She's out." Like I had to tell him twice. So it's like that's all. All that's going through my mind is like, "What's the ref doing?" Like, come on, bro. Like
Right. Like, hello,
it's not
I'm the
my
one
job to
holding
stop the
her.
fight.
Right. And I mean, it shows like your veteran status of like just holding on to that choke until the last minute. I mean, some people, might have let it go and just been like, she's out, I'm going to walk away. But is there ever a moment where you start to worry, or are you just so dialed in that you're just like, nope, I'm getting this finish?
The ref comes in the locker room and tells you before the fight. He's like, "Wait until I pull you off.
Mhm.
Don't the fight isn't finished until he pulls you off." Because like there is those weird chances that you let go of a choke and she wakes back up and then is arguing, "No, I wasn't out. I was fine." So you can't take the risk.
Exactly. And I'm glad you did it. And it was an amazing performance. So I guess now we're going to bow out of that division. We're going to head over to the strawweight division. I'm so excited for you. Just looking at, let's say, the top five of the strawweights, like what excites you the most about fighting girls in this weight class? To me, I think, it's very elite striking. It's just all around athleticism. What would you say excites you the most about this switch?
Yeah, I don't know. I definitely see obviously there's a lot of good competition, but I feel like there's a lot of good matchups for me up there. And I feel like I don't know. I'm in the time of my life right now where I'm ready to make a title run. So we're gonna try to really push for that here.
Let's go. That's so exciting to think about. So, I mean, if you're going for that title fight, let's look at some of these names here. I mean, you got the champ, Wei Li, Carlos Sparza. You already had a taste of Rose, which that was nuts at the Fury grappling match. Talk to me about that experience and being able to finish off a former champion so quickly.
So Rose is someone who I've like always admired. I'm like, since I think I was an amateur when she was in the tough house. So it's like she was just like those 2 steps ahead of me always. And now I feel like we are at a point where obviously like we competed against each other. We might be seeing each other in the cage one day. And it's, that's kind of surreal to me on its own. I'm like, I've just always looked up to her so much, loved her style. She was in the tough house. Like, I feel like a lot of people like aren't big fans of grapplers. So, and she was, I think, got 3 or 4 submissions in the tough house. So she was just killing it, getting submissions off her back. And that's what like won my heart initially. I remember in Invicta, she got a flying armbar in like less than a minute. And I'm like, I just absolutely fell in love with her fighting style and who she was. So to be able to show the mat with her was awesome. And I definitely, like, I expected to win, but I didn't expect it to go like that. I was very happy with the results.
I would hope so. I mean, it kind of seems like, rubbing elbows with heroes in a way. It's like you're finally on that level of like, okay, I'm in the big leagues now. If you were to meet in the UFC cage, I mean, do you see it going similarly?
I would hope. Obviously, right now, I feel like I have to respect her as she's still very high ranked in the division, and she obviously is a former champion. So I feel like for me to talk that game right now is a little bit too big. I'm like, after this fight, I'd probably be looking somewhere like in top 15 to top 10 opponents, and then we'd be looking up a little bit higher in her class,
Totally fair. Totally fair. And we have a match, right on the horizon for you. Piera Rodriguez. And she made her debut last year against 2 pretty game opponents. What were your thoughts on her performances for both of those between Kay Hansen, Sam Hughes? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I definitely feel like she's aggressive. She's down to stay in the pocket. She seems down to get takedowns, doesn't seem very willing to engage on the ground a lot. Or doesn't, I feel like with Sam Hughes, she didn't really have the capability to hold her down. Sam was able to get up. So I feel like obviously like going into this, the grappling is going to be my world, but that's really what I took from those.
Your grappling is so exciting to watch. And this is coming from somebody who's just starting to get into it. I just started jiu-jitsu very recently. I've always been a striker. I've always loved striking. But your ground game is so beautiful. Who do you credit the beginnings of your career to?
Well, I've worked with Dean Thomas since I was 16 years old. So he's still in my corner to this day. I work with him a couple times a week now. I'm mainly at the Goat Shed now in Miami. So I train there, and then Dean comes down like 2-3 times a week, and we still work together. But I've worked with Dean since I was 16. So I'm like the last like 12 years he's been in my corner.
That's a pretty awesome corner to have. Dean Thomas is one of my favorite humans in the world. And having someone like that in your corner, I mean, I feel like it's almost cheating. Like the guy is so great. When it comes to grappling, what do you say is your favorite part about it?
I guess what really made me fall in love with it initially was I remember when I was like 110 pounds, whatever. Like I was 18 years old going into the gym, and I was just a little blue belt, and I was like manhandling these huge guys who are white belts. And I'm like, this is cool. Like, it's like, this shit actually works. And I'm like, it's just,
Hell
it's
yeah.
so cool to be able to, I don't know, it's like science behind it, and to be able to, I don't know, just see that it works and be able to use it. And like I said, these guys are a lot bigger, a lot stronger, but it's like, it's just all about leverage.
Yeah, I'm starting to learn breathing, very important. Trusting your body, very important. I would love to hear your opinion on women and getting into jiu-jitsu and getting into grappling. What I find a lot of my friends will say things like, how did you get started? Oh, I'm too nervous to walk into the gym, or, oh, like I'm embarrassed to try it. For women that might be watching that have considered the jump but haven't quite done it, what would you say to them?
It's such a hard step because it is intimidating walking into most jujitsu gyms, you're going to see very few girls. There's going to be probably less than 5 girls to about 30 guys. So it's like, that's an intimidating place. And then also just like, I don't know, it's weird. Everybody's touching on you. Like, it's like, it's a weird sport. Like, it's weird to start doing. I feel like I was lucky with like starting so young that it just was like, I don't know, it was normal. So now it's like, I never had to go through that weird period, but I feel like you just got to really just try it. You have to take that first step. And I feel like that's such a big thing in so many things in life, is just like, just kind of taking that first step, just doing it. And then you really, because I didn't even know what jujitsu was when I started. And now it's like the love of my life. I'm like, you just got to start it and try it. And I feel like you got to do that with everything in life.
It's so true, though, like how awkward it is when you first start. Like when I first started, you're right. There was only like one other girl, and I'm rolling with these dudes, and I'm like, this is just weird. But would you agree that it's one of those tools that women should probably know, just safety wise?
Safety wise, and I feel like just confidence wise, it makes you like, it definitely helps your confidence a lot walking around. And obviously safety, I'm like this, I feel like jiu-jitsu is one of the best things for self-defense.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And now that I know a little bit of it, it's like I'll walk into a room and I'll just be like, I could choke you out. I could totally choke you out. So one of my favorite moments from your last fight was actually during your post-fight interview. And you said something that caught my ear. You said Gillian and the Savage are two different people. I don't know who I am sometimes after the fight. What does that mean?
So like after that fight and after most of my fights, I'm like, I feel like, I don't know, something just comes over me. Even like during the fight, I feel like I'm not like an aggressive person. I don't like watching shit like that. Like, I don't like watching arms break or people getting like blood everywhere and things like that. But I can do that just fine in the moment. I'm like, I've had a girl's arm and I'm like, why isn't this thing breaking? But then I watch the video back and I'm like, oh, that's so gross. So I'm like, after that fight, I literally like don't even remember doing this, but I sat down and I flicked off like the crowd. I don't know. I just two middle fingers
remember.
up.
It was savage for sure.
Have no idea. Like, I literally like blacked out in that moment. After the fight, interviewer asked me, he's like, oh, what was the double middle fingers about? I was like, I did that. I had no idea, did not remember it at all. So that's where I mean, like, Gillian and the Savage were two different people.
That's incredible. It was just emotions, man. Emotions. Fuck all of you.
Exactly.
So let's talk about weed for a second. Love how open you are about smoking weed. Is it something that you feel is beneficial for recovery? Is it more for pleasure? Is it a little bit of both?
I feel like it's a little bit of both. Definitely relaxation. I don't know. Whenever I first started training jujitsu, like, I feel like I would always just like smoke on the way to the gym. And that's another thing where I'm like, it makes you more creative and relaxed. And it was just like, I really loved just going and training and smoking whenever I first started. I'm like, I still do that. But I just feel like, I don't know, it's definitely both pleasure, and I feel like it just helps with relaxation.
I've always been curious about this. Have you ever run into issues with like commissions or states like before a fight that, it's not recreationally legal yet? Like, how does that work?
So obviously we're sanctioned by USADA, and USADA, I believe the only two commissions right now that you're actually allowed to have weed, like, it doesn't matter the amount of weed in your system when you fight, is Florida and Nevada. So those are the only two states where you just can't walk in the cage high. That's the only rule. It's like, other than that, you can like have as much weed in your system and it's fine. But there's other states like New York where you're allowed the number 0, where you can't have any at all in your system. So fortunately, I have never fought there. before Nevada did have this, I did have one issue. Unfortunately, I was suspended for 6 months because I went over the limit.
Oh no.
So it was definitely a shorter notice fight, and I didn't cut as much weight, so it was like I had more in my system, and yeah, I had one issue back in the day. But other than that, I feel like the UFC's done me pretty good at letting me fight in states now that it's okay.
Perfect. I mean, hey, we all make mistakes. Whatever. It happens. What's your favorite kind of strand, would you say? Do you like sativa, indica, a little bit of both?
I would say more sativas. I like anything that's like lemony or orangey. So I'm like, my favorite is it's actually an indica that's my favorite. It's an orange. It's called Mandarin Dream, but it's from True Leaf. I'm like, it is the best tasting thing. It's just so sweet.
So I live in Rhode Island. I don't know if you're familiar with Rhode Island at all, but it's kind of near New York, more near Massachusetts, but it's finally legal. So there's stores popping up all over the place. And I'm like, I feel like a kid in a candy store. I'm like diving headfirst into all these different strands. Would you ever come up with like a savage strand?
So that's definitely like, I don't know. I need to build myself as a brand more. And then I already have like the game plan for that. Like I know what I want to name it. I know everything that I'm going for. So 100%. And like you said, a kid in the candy store, I'm like, that's how I feel because in Florida, we're medically legal. We're not recreationally. So it's like when I go to like Vegas or Colorado or something like that, I'm like, it's a completely different world out there seeing all the things that they have.
Well, let's hear it. What would you name it?
Okay, so I'm like, should I let this out?
If you want to keep it on the DL, totally understand.
It's going to be an indica. It's going to be called Rear Naked Kush, and it'll put you to sleep.
That's so good. That's so good. We're patenting it right now, so nobody is allowed to take that. But that is so awesome. I love that you have a game plan for that. I will certainly buy it. Whatever it takes, I will grab it. But I want to go to the fans. A bunch of fans gave me some questions to ask you on Instagram. So let's check out what they wanted to know about the Savage. A lot of questions. A couple people wanted your number. I was like, no, you're a weirdo. Brennan Ward wanting to know, are you still the high rollers champ?
I actually am not. I competed against Cynthia Caveo last year, and we had a very close matchup. She ended up beating me in, I think it was like second or third round of overtime. So yeah, it was a really good matchup, but I ended up losing the belt on that one.
That's all right. We'll get a UFC belt.
Exactly.
This person said, would you like a fight with Montana De La Rosa?
Well, seeing as my new weight class at 115, actually, honestly, I would take fights still at 125 if they were shorter notice. Like at 115, I definitely need the time to cut the weight. But Montana's probably someone I would take. Like if they gave me like a 4-week camp, I would love to still take fights in the 25 division too.
Cool. Let's see. This one's kind of funny. She puts people to sleep all the time, but has she ever experienced it herself?
Kinda. Once I was grappling, it was actually on Submission Underground against Raquel Canuto. Probably the fastest I've ever been subbed, I think, ever. I shot in on a single leg, and she got a deep guillotine and went high elbow with it. And generally speaking, if they get a guillotine and you pass to side control, you're good. But because she went high elbow with it, I wasn't good. So I passed aside and I was like, oh shit, I'm still choking. And then I tapped. And then as she let go, I went to stand up, and then I kind of fell back because I was like, I couldn't stand up completely. And the ref was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I think I just went out a little bit. So like, I've never been completely like put to sleep, but I've been on the verge of it.
On the verge. I mean, that's just as bad, honestly. This person said, oh, this is kind of a good one. Any animosity towards Cachoeira after the eye poking? So just talk a little bit about that in case people missed that fight.
So it was the end of the first round. Yeah. I ended up getting Priscilla's back. I had a choke, and I she was trying to push my head back, but she couldn't really get under my chin because I was tucking my chin really tight. So the only really way to do it was to use her finger in my eye. So she did that multiple times. And I don't honestly, like, I feel like the media made a huge deal about it. I know, like, Joe Rogan talked about it. It was on, like, so many different, like, Sports Centers things. And I'm like, I didn't really, like, I was like, it is what it is. I got the win. Like, I wasn't even thinking about it in the moment. And I feel like, if anything, it took away from, I'm like, I felt like I had a pretty slick transition into my rear naked choke. I'm like, you guys should have focused on that.
Right? Like, focus on what I'm doing, man. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's no animosity. Last one. What do you consider the best performance of your career so far?
I would say probably the best performance. I feel like I'm a better fighter than this now, but at that time, this was like the best Gillian that was able to, like, I went out there and I performed that night, you know? Some nights it's like you're not mentally on or whatever. It's like there's so many different factors that go into a fight. The one night that I feel like I went out there and performed was against Sarah Froda. And I feel like a huge reason of that is because it was in Edmonton, Canada. And obviously, me being Canadian, had the whole hometown support. And that is the first fight, I think, ever in my pro career that I had that I wasn't like getting booed, walked out pretty much because I fought in my opponent's hometown.
So that must have felt pretty good.
It was, the energy in there was absolutely insane. I absolutely loved that. I loved everything about it. I loved the fight. I loved like feeling just the crowd screaming after the win, just having so much support. It was amazing.
How long have you been in Florida now? Because you're at the goat shed.
Yeah, I've grown up in Florida pretty much, but
Okay.
I have all my family's back in Canada.
Got it. So Florida's like the second home. I'm sure if you fought in Florida, you'd have plenty of fans.
Oh yeah, that's my next goal. I'm like, I would love to fight in Florida.
All right. Well, it sounds like you want to have an active 2023. In a perfect world, what does this year look like to you?
I'd like to get obviously a win in April and then hopefully be looking like somewhere I said like around top 15 to top 10 girl and maybe get one or two more fights in at the end of the year. It depends how this is my first time going down to 115 in a long time. So it depends how this weight cut feels and how we're going to process after that.
Any idea where the fight's going to be? I wasn't sure if it got announced yet, your next fight.
No, on my contract, it just says to be decided or to be announced. So I'm like, I have no idea.
All right. Well, wherever it is, hopefully weed's legal and we'll figure it out. Very nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gillian. It was so nice catching up with you and best of luck in the new division.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.